This is called side hilling, and basically we're creating a path that runs along the edge of this slope that's going to be easy to walk on. And the goal is that it's easy enough to walk on so people can take in the view, so they're not having to really watch their feet. And so, inch by inch. I figure if I can do 20 feet in a day, I'm happy. Some days are less than that. But moving a lot of rocks, chopping away. I work till, I usually maybe put 4 or 5 hours in of actual work. And then at age 68, the personal batteries have run down for the day, and it's time to quit. I really love doing this, and so it doesn't feel like work to me. I think that I did my first trail a little over 20 years ago, so I've learned through trial and error what to do and what not to do. Just have them out slope, so there's an ever so slight tilt of the trail going this way, so the water doesn't run down the trail and erode the trail. So you always want to just get a little bit of an outslope. This is a mattock. A mattock is the tool because the gravity of the heavy iron does all the work. So you don't have to be, John Henry slaving away. You just let the gravity do the job. Well, the rocks are really useful for filling in the holes. See, here I had a big hole to have a big rock, but then I'm going to wedge around it these little guys from here so that ultimately it makes a pretty smooth surface. That's the idea. Same here. And you need to go down through the organic layer, which is the dark layer, down to the mineral soil, which is this brown, orange or brown stuff, because the organic layer is really slippery. And so you don't want that as a trail surface if you can help it. Sometimes you can't help it. This is the organic layer, the dark stuff, and that's really slippery when it gets muddy and wet. So this orange-brown colored stuff, this is the mineral soil, and that's much better as a trail surface. So you're trying to work down through the organic to the mineral soil. Most of the time that's a practical thing to do, and that's what you're trying to do. Going to join the Cascade Trail, and then the Cascade Trail takes you to the Pinnacle Trail, which takes you to the Pinnacle. So it'll be a pretty trail, and especially the first third of a mile on this bottom section is very beautiful. When will it open? September 9th. So just about a month from today, though, when you see this, it'll already be open. But yeah. And all these trails on the west side tend to have a lot of beauty spots in them because they have ledges and hemlocks, and ledges and hemlocks, and ledges and hemlocks because of the geology. And so they're really pretty. We've got a whole bunch of them, and this is one. Okay, so I worked in the motion picture industry and television industry for almost 40 years. And as a camera assistant and lighting person and cameraman, and one of the things that you're always trying to do in the motion picture industry is make things visually interesting, okay? So you're always trying to figure out, how do I make this shot where we're working in 2 dimensions in the movie industry feel like 3 dimensions. So you try to get moving past things where something is moving past the camera in the foreground really fast because you're close to it, while the far off things are moving less quickly. That suggests 3 dimensions. So I try to do something similar with the trails and have foreground trees and background trees so that you can feel the 3 dimensions. It's just what we used to do in the movie business, and you can translate that here. Like the movie business, you're making use of physics and science to create an aesthetic outcome, right? That's what you're going for, is aesthetic, but the way you get there is physics, right? And optics and that kind of thing. So some of what I learned in the movie business, I can translate into trail layout. And I have to say, I love going on trails. They are, to me, I come away from hiking on a trail and I just feel uplifted. And so that's what I try to create on the trails that I build, and I hope people could come and enjoy them. I worked on 60 episodes of Nova, the science show. I worked for Ken Burns. I worked for BBC, ABC, CBS, NBC, tons of independent producers. I did everything in 16 millimeter, so it was a really fun career. But this is a fun way to spend my later years, my ripening years, out here on a beautiful set of trails. I grew up surrounded by woods and ledges near Boston, and I am spending my latter years recreating on a bigger scale the same things that moved me when I was a kid. I've got to finish this, and then there's what we call these are side hillings, but these are really big side hillings. There's a lot of small side hillings up above, and there's I don't know, if you wanted to go hiking, I could show you. You think this is big? I did a huge amount, about a third.
You already
of one.
have.
Yeah.
You already.
Already done. It's enormous. I mean, it's much bigger than this. So here we have a sloping seep, the worst situation you could try to put a trail across. And so we've had to put stepping stones in, and there's a causeway running up there, drainage ditches to make it work as a trail. So it's taken a lot of work to do that. And through a bit of trial and error, I think we are getting pretty successful at it. So we've got a dry surface that gives you good traction, you don't slip and slide. Whereas trying to walk on this stuff is like the Three Stooges. You're just slipping and sliding. The other day I did a complete derriere plant over here. Not what I was intending. So it's been a challenge, but I think we're working at it successfully. In the motion picture industry is that once you have a reputation, you can live in a rural place like this, and the employers will be happy to fly you wherever they need to take you once you've got the reputation.
That's great.
Yeah, so I was able to do that, and so I was very lucky. These blue blazes, they indicate the edge of our boundary line, and this property that was given to us is a fairly narrow piece of property, and it gets steep going up above, and so because it's narrow and steep, we have to do sharp switchbacks going up, and not too many choices as to where the route could go, and so up we went. You'll see, we'll get further up, it gets steep, but we've tamed the steepness as much as geometry will permit. Mr. Euclid would be proud of what we did. Okay, so we're about to go up a section that's really steep, and so we had to do a lot of engineering to make the trail be a strong trail and not too hard for people to hike. So a lot of work went into this. On this steep trail, everything's been what's called side-hilled or benched so that it's a strong surface that won't wash out. That's the goal. And so it takes a lot of work to do it, but you end up with a good trail. This is done, yes. There you can see. The rocks that don't wobble, I can't move, but the rocks that do wobble, I can move. So this is a combination of some that were already here, like the ones that are too big, and then this one I remember putting in place, which was just about as big as I can handle. Anything bigger than that, and I couldn't do it. Also, don't ever try to move rocks, anything other than downhill. Sideways is kind of okay. Don't imagine you can go uphill. This is a nice spot because we're almost at the level of the canopy of the trees that are down below us. So we've really climbed a lot, and we're almost up to canopy height. And no one ever logged the trees that were down in that steep valley, and so you have some old growth in there, older trees. Because when it gets too steep, they're hard to log. The reason this trail has so much side hilling and engineering at its westernmost edge is because it climbs very steeply for quite a while and then becomes maybe not level but much less steep going forward, going eastward from there. So you've got this really steep section at the west that demands a lot of engineering, and that's what we had to do. And when you have steep sections, they're pretty, usually. And so it often turns out that where you have to do the most engineering also is the prettiest. And I think this is one example for sure. Yep. You notice up there, there's underbrush. Under the hemlocks, there's nothing. The hemlocks put poison out of their roots to inhibit the growth of other plants. And that's what they end up with. And you get a cathedral-like feeling from the poison in the roots.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Any interesting rocks, I always try to go to or through or take advantage of. And any pretty spot, I try to run the trail to if I can justify it at all. So you're trying to have as many beautiful experiences, one after another in a trail as you can make it, and have it be as richly experienced as you can come up with, because people aren't consciously aware of it, but at the end of the hike they just notice, wow, that was great. You know, they might not know why exactly. So try to include those places, and this is surely one. This is the roughest surface trail of any of the trails in the whole Pinnacle system. Because it's a really steep piece of land, we just had one choice of where we could run it, and it's up a rough piece of terrain with lots of rocks and things. So we've tamed that surface as much as we can, but it's still rougher than anything else in our system. Here we went right up to the boundary line.
Oh, yeah.
Right against the edge of the property. You can't hear it today, but when it's really raining hard, there's an underground stream that flows through here. And you can hear it. It's a hollow tunnel sound, and then it emerges out of the rocks down there. So we actually have an underground river, but you can't see it. But you can hear it sometimes. It's into the bedrock and then comes back out as a seep. So it's in and out, you know, it's been a challenge to put the trail across these surfaces.
Did you ever actually hit the underground river when you were digging?
Well, no, but there's a seep right above the trail down on that first causeway, and we just had to go across the seep and just build a big causeway above it, and fingers crossed, it's working so far. The bedrock is porous here and rich. What I do on a piece of land is I walk across it many times, marking using different colored surveyor ribbons, plausible root segments, okay? And I'll find as many plausible roots as I can come up with, which then become like the individual items in a salad bar. And I select the best combination of those roots I can find so that at every decision point I'm making the better choice. Okay? It's impossible mathematically not to come out with a superior trail if you do that, because at every decision point you made the better choice. And so it's very time consuming to do that, to lay all those ribbons out, but you end up with a really good trail as a consequence. So it's a reliable way of using a mechanical method to end up with something that's aesthetically very pleasing. And the more mechanical it is, the more thorough it is, the better it is aesthetically. You have to know how to manipulate the physics in the movie business with lights and things to create the aesthetic experience that you're trying to go for, but you have to know the physics to be able to manipulate it successfully to get to the aesthetics, and it's a similar process here. It takes months, many months. I mean, I spent a lot of time, oh my gosh, yes, looking at all the possibilities. In some places there's only one possibility. On that really steep section, there was really only one valid route. I did find another longer one, but you'd have to put stairs in. It was just not as good. So there you didn't really have too many choices, but almost everywhere else you have choice. And so that means you get a superior trail. As Joseph Campbell said, follow your bliss. I'm lucky enough to love building trails, so I'm following my bliss doing this. And so it may look like just work, which at some level it is, but when you enjoy what you're doing, it doesn't feel like work. I do this basically 2 or 3 days a week. I can't go over 3 days a week. At age 68, my body just cannot work harder than that, and so that's the limit. So I'm at my limit when I'm working on these, and that's all I can do. Well, you can't do this in the wintertime because the ground is frozen. The warmer half of the year you can do it, and you don't want to do it early in the spring when it's too muddy. So about the warmer half of the warmer 6 months of the year. But you can do laying out of ribbons until your fingers get too cold. So that's probably into November. When it gets too cold, you can't do the laying of the ribbons because your fingers freeze up after half an hour, and then you wasted the rest of the day.